Today, Britain was rocked by a statement unprecedented in modern history. King Charles III, the man who had waited his entire life to ascend the throne, unexpectedly declared that his life has come to an end and that he would hand over the leadership of the monarchy to Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. The message, delivered from Buckingham Palace, lasted only a few minutes, but its weight reverberated like an earthquake. In the press room, international correspondents froze for a heartbeat before the clicks of cameras and a volley of urgent questions shattered the silence. This decision cannot be separated from the turbulence of the past 2 years. From early 2024, whispers about the king's health began to circulate at first, discreet murmurs from within palace walls. Soon, however, images of a thinner Charles, walking more slowly and making fewer public appearances, fueled public concern. Meanwhile, the royal household was undergoing a wave of change. Princess Anne emerged as a quiet pillar after shielding her son from a media scandal. Prince William and Catherine were winning ever greater public affection, and behind the scenes, subtle power rifts within the family were becoming more visible. If we call it by its true name, Charles's early abdication is about far more than health. It marks the convergence of several pressures: the physical toll of battling illness, the mental strain of projecting strength at a time when the monarchy is under relentless scrutiny, and the political media pressure of a younger, more dynamic generation ready to take the crown. The words "my life has come to an end" were not merely an admission of age or frailty. They hinted at a long and testing journey and at a monarchy now standing at a moment of transfer. For decades, Charles had lived in the immense shadow of Queen Elizabeth II, only to find that when he finally stepped into the light, the storms of the age were already closing in. Now, the spotlight, political and social, falls squarely on Prince William and Catherine, widely seen as the future of the British monarchy. They will bear the dual burden of preserving tradition while adapting to the demands of the 21st century. As for Charles's retreat, how will history judge it? As a courageous act, relinquishing power for the good of the monarchy, or as the quiet end of a reign that never quite left its mark? The first whispers about the king's health began in early 2024 when he was admitted to hospital for treatment on his prostate. At the time, the palace reassured the public that it was a routine medical procedure. Nothing serious. But only weeks later, Britain was jolted by another announcement: doctors had diagnosed Charles with an undisclosed form of cancer. The statement was cautious, but enough to spark a media storm. Leading British newspapers ran stark, haunting headlines: the king battles cancer. The monarch, who had once kept a packed schedule, was now seen with a gaunter face, a slower step, and sometimes leaning on aides for support. The public was both moved and unsettled. For a nation long accustomed to Queen Elizabeth's decades of steady resilience, the news that the new king on the throne for less than 2 years was facing a serious illness was a shock that was hard to absorb. The blows did not stop there. Only weeks after Charles's diagnosis came another announcement from Kensington Palace that left Britain stunned. Catherine, Princess of Wales, the very embodiment of poise and vitality, had also been diagnosed with cancer. She had undergone abdominal surgery earlier in the year, and subsequent tests revealed the presence of malignant cells. The news was delivered in a recorded statement broadcast to the nation. Catherine, dressed in a pale blue sweater, sat in the family's garden, her voice calm but edged with emotion. She admitted it had taken time to process the news and to explain it to her 3 young children. "My priority now," she said, "is to make a full recovery and spend time with my family." The revelation drew the public into a whirlpool of emotion. In the space of weeks, both the king and the woman destined to be queen were facing the same invisible enemy. International media dubbed it the royal family's bleak winter. Catherine's public appearances were scaled back to the bare minimum, and even then she kept the press at a distance. The rare glimpses of Catherine during this period revealed a woman still resolute, yet more fragile than before, her face noticeably thinner, her eyes still bright but occasionally shadowed by fatigue. The public's affection for her ran deep. Thousands sent letters and flowers to the palace, tokens of encouragement in her fight. Yet a question began to stir in the national mind. Could the royal family weather an unprecedented storm when both of its pillars were on the front line of a battle for life itself? Since the announcements of Charles and Catherine's illnesses, the rhythm of royal life had shifted dramatically. The king, long known for his tireless work ethic and his desire to personally oversee affairs, was now forced to scale back. Audiences were shortened or conducted virtually. State visits abroad, once a cornerstone of his diplomatic strategy, were canceled or handed to others. One photograph in particular came to symbolize this new era: Charles sitting by the window at Sandringham, his gaze drifting out over the wintry garden, a monarch still on the throne, but no longer standing at the forefront. Into that void stepped Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. Anne, with her practical, unshowy approach, took on a host of public duties, everything from military ceremonies to charity engagements. Her schedule grew so relentless that the press dubbed her the monarchy's last century. Camilla, though still divisive in public opinion, worked tirelessly to represent the king at commemorations and cultural gatherings. Yet every time she appeared, the question returned: was this a genuine expansion of Camilla's influence, or merely a stopgap in a time of crisis? Meanwhile, William faced a double challenge, shouldering an ever greater role in the monarchy while caring for Catherine and their three young children. One image struck a particular chord with the public: William, in a casual jacket, bending down to take his youngest son's hand outside the school gates, only to appear hours later in a perfectly tailored suit at an international summit. Many began calling him the bridge between the monarchy's present and its future. Inside the palace walls, however, the pressure upon him was mounting. At the same time, rumors of royal reform began to spread. Sources suggested that Charles Long, a proponent of streamlining the number of full-time working royals, was now considering accelerating his plan. The move could leave only a small core of senior figures: William, Catherine, Anne, and Camilla, handling most public engagements. Some observers saw it as a way to reduce costs and improve transparency. Others warned that downsizing too quickly, especially in the current climate, could weaken the monarchy's connection with the people. Though nothing had been formally announced, the internal restructuring had already made the palace a focal point of speculation. Who would truly hold the reins in the king's absence? How long would Camilla's elevated role last? And could Anne, steadfast in duty, yet uninterested in the limelight, become the unexpected player in this shifting balance of power? That night, in a warm chamber of Windsor Castle, there were no television cameras, no clicking shutters, only the flicker of the firelight, and three people gathered around an oak table: King Charles III, Prince William, and Princess Catherine. Outside, the winter wind rattled against the ancient stone walls. Inside, the air was heavier still. Charles's face bore the unmistakable marks of illness and time. He fixed his gaze on his son. His voice was rough, but every word landed like stone. "William, my life has come to an end." It was not a lament, but a clear-eyed admission. He paused, drew in a deep breath, and went on. "I have waited my whole life for this role, but my health and the times have made the decision for me. The monarchy needs a strong heart, a fresh vision, and I believe you and Catherine will bring that." William said nothing, though his eyes glistened. He had long prepared for this moment, yet when it came, the weight of it was still immense. Beside him, Catherine, slender but unwavering, rested her hand lightly on the table and gave the smallest of nods, a silent pledge. Charles continued, his voice now lower but warmer. "My son, I am not giving you a crown. I am giving you a duty and a burden. But you will not bear it alone. Catherine will be your strength, as your mother was once mine." He turned to Catherine, his eyes full of trust. "I know you are fighting your own illness, but it is precisely your courage that the monarchy needs now. You will not only be a future queen, you will be a symbol of resilience." In that moment, William reached for his father's hand. There were no grand promises, only a silence that all three understood this was a transfer of power not recorded in the history books, but one that would shape the future of the monarchy. What was said in that room would never be fully disclosed, but when they emerged, the public sensed something had shifted. William's gaze was steadier. Catherine, though physically frail, radiated an unusual calm, and Charles, still wearing the crown, seemed somehow lighter. His decision was more than a retreat. It was an act of political wisdom, recognizing the right moment to pass the torch before being forced to. In the history of the British monarchy, it is rare for a sovereign to willingly step back. Yet in this moment, Charles III chose to do so, not because he was weak, but because he understood that true strength lies in placing the monarchy's well-being above his own. Only weeks after that private conversation at Windsor, signs of a new era began to appear in plain sight. There was no coronation, no formal proclamation of abdication. Yet the activities of the royal family now revolved around two names, William and Catherine. The British press swiftly christened them the new heart of the monarchy. On overseas tours, William appeared with a new assurance, no longer the prince trailing behind his father, but the figure at the center, speaking as if he were already a head of state. Catherine, though battling illness, selectively attended key events, ensuring her public image was tied to inner strength, elegance, and compassion. They were not merely continuing tradition, they were redefining it. Charitable programs were expanded with a focus on transparency and direct impact. William spearheaded a global climate change campaign, building on and elevating the Earthshot Prize, urging urgent action from governments and corporations alike. Catherine, with her passion for education and mental health, broadened her early years initiative, concentrating on children from disadvantaged backgrounds and stressing that the future of the nation begins in the earliest years of life. What set them apart was how they did it. Beyond speeches before cameras, William and Catherine went to refugee camps, schools, and disaster-hit communities, shaking hands, listening, and acting. Media analysts observed they bring a monarchy that feels closer to the people, yet no less dignified. Within the palace, this soft transfer of power brought profound changes. Senior advisors and aides increasingly reported directly to William rather than Charles. The royal diary was arranged so that William and Catherine stood at the forefront, from international summits to traditional festivities. Charles, though retaining his title, now acted more as counselor and figurehead, a guardian rather than the helmsman. The public welcomed this shift with a mix of excitement and relief. After years of scandals that had tarnished the royal image, William and Catherine seemed like a fresh breeze, young, dedicated, and capable of meeting the challenges of the 21st century. Major newspapers from London to New York ran their photographs on front pages with headlines like "A Modern and Sustainable Monarchy," blending tradition with reform. William and Catherine were rewriting the story of the British monarchy. They were not simply its future, they had, in truth, become its present. And as the spotlight narrowed on them, the world was watching, wondering could this be the dawn of a new golden age for the royal family? Yet while William and Catherine shone as the couple leading the monarchy into a new era, elsewhere within the palace, Camilla was becoming acutely aware of the widening spaces around her. Since Charles had openly expressed his wish to entrust leadership to his son and daughter-in-law, her appearances had grown fewer. Events that once had her name on the guest list were now filled with images of Catherine smiling among the crowds, or William speaking from the podium of honor. Camilla had never been one to stand on the sidelines. From the moment she entered the royal family, she had fought her way through prejudice, carving out a secure place at Charles's side. And yet now, in just a few short months, it felt as though everything had been quietly and irreversibly taken from her grasp. Her simmering envy of Catherine deepened, with every newspaper front page showing the Duchess of Cambridge, still elegant, still adored, even while fighting illness. The public hailed Catherine as a symbol of strength and compassion, while Camilla was saddled with headlines as cold as they were cutting the Silent Queen, a fading role in a new era. The relationship between the two women had never been warm, but lately it had tightened to the point of strain. At family gatherings, Catherine remained impeccably polite, but Camilla could feel the discomfort in the silences, the averted glances, the short, cool replies. She understood that in the public eye, Catherine was not only the future of the monarchy, but the yardstick against which every comparison made her look diminished. Her isolation was compounded by Charles's health, which kept him resting for long periods at Sandringham or Balmoral. He rarely discussed strategic decisions with her anymore, preferring instead to consult directly with William. On long evenings at Clarence House, Camilla would sit alone in her study, staring out over the misty garden, wondering when exactly she had become a supporting character in a story she had once believed was her own. Royal watchers were quick to note the shift. Some newspapers hinted that Camilla was facing her most difficult period since becoming queen. The whispers that she was being pushed to the margins only cut deeper into an already bruised pride. Deep down, Camilla knew this wasn't a passing phase. It was a sign that her place within the palace had been permanently altered. And as the spotlight closed in entirely on William and Catherine, she was left to face a bitter question. Did she still have a place in this new reign? Or was she destined to remain a shadow in their wake? The story of William and Catherine, told 1,000 times, still carried for the British public and for the world something both romantic and faded. They first met in 2001 at the University of St. Andrews. William, a young prince seeking peace beyond the glare of the spotlight. Catherine, an intelligent, composed young woman whose smile had a way of making strangers feel at ease. What began as friendship grew into a deep bond, though both knew the enormous pressures and expectations their relationship would bring. In 2007, news of their brief split sent the press into a frenzy. But for William and Catherine, the separation proved a test. They realized their love was strong enough to weather personal upheaval and the combined pressures of the crown and the public eye. When they reunited, their relationship was more mature and more unshakable than before. In October 2010, William proposed with the legendary blue sapphire ring that had once belonged to Princess Diana, a gesture both romantic and symbolic, a thread tying Catherine into the family's legacy. In April 2011, their royal wedding at Westminster Abbey drew over 2 billion viewers worldwide. The sight of Catherine, radiant in her ivory gown, hand in hand with William as they emerged from the Abbey, became an indelible moment in the public memory. In the years that followed, they welcomed 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, each arrival an international event. Yet more remarkable was how they managed to build a family life that, by royal standards, was almost ordinary. Behind the grandeur were evenings together in Norfolk, school drop-offs, moments of Catherine cooking dinner herself, and William kicking a football around with the children. That strong family foundation became the anchor that held them steady through the storms. As their responsibilities within the monarchy grew, William and Catherine moved in step, supporting each other in both public duty and private life. Their seamless partnership was built not only on love, but on absolute trust, the kind forged over 2 decades. From the lecture halls of St. Andrews to the challenges of the leadership role they now share. Now, with Charles stepping back, they no longer simply represent the future of the monarchy. They stand as living proof that a solid, enduring marriage is perhaps the strongest foundation any royal reign can have in the modern era. Yet William and Catherine's journey is far from the glittering fairy tale often captured in camera flashes. It has also been a series of quiet battles against the relentless pressure of the media, a pressure William has understood all too well since childhood. In 2011, only months after their wedding, a media firestorm erupted when the British press was caught in a phone hacking scandal involving numerous public figures, including members of the royal family. William and Catherine found themselves prime targets for tabloids desperate for every scrap of private detail, from intimate phone calls to everyday photographs. The wounds deepened in 2012 when a French magazine published a set of intrusive images of Catherine sunbathing at a private villa in Provence, taken from a great distance without consent. Those intimate moments instantly plastered front pages worldwide. William's anger was unusually visible. Memories of his mother, Diana, flooded back with painful force. He knew better than anyone what the press could strip away: peace, dignity, and sometimes even life itself. The tragic death of Diana in 1997, hounded by paparazzi through the streets of Paris, had seared into William a brutal lesson: the press, unchecked, can become a merciless predator. From that moment, William resolved to guard his private world with fierce determination, especially when it came to his children. He and Catherine drew an unyielding line: photographs of George, Charlotte, and Louis would be released only on official occasions, and only under their control. They chose discreet schooling, far from intrusive lenses. Public appearances with the children were carefully curated, symbolic moments rather than invasive glimpses into private life. The world might see the young royals smiling and waving at national events, but their school days, friendships, and personal hobbies remained firmly off limits. This protective stance has set William and Catherine apart from previous generations. They refused to let the media mind their private lives as it once did with Diana or with William himself as a boy. To the public, it speaks not only of parental responsibility, but also of a calculated strategy to preserve the mental and emotional stability of future heirs. Inevitably, the couple has faced accusations from certain outlets of being aloof or distant. Yet for them, every criticism is a price worth paying if it means their children can grow up with some measure of peace. Deep down, William knows a child raised under a constant paparazzi glare will never truly have a childhood. By the closing months of 2024, a heavy, almost tangible haze seemed to settle over Buckingham Palace. Public concern grew with every news update on King Charles III's health. The monarch had been undergoing a rigorous treatment regimen following a cancer diagnosis. His public appearances grew fewer, his speech slower, his hands often clasped gently as though to hold on to what strength remained. The worry stretched beyond Britain, rippling through the Commonwealth realms where the king's image still embodies stability and tradition. Yet alongside this concern, another current began to swell anew: expectant energy focusing on Prince William and Princess Catherine. Their presence at official events increased: climate change summits, anti-homelessness campaigns, hospital visits, and school engagements. Catherine's serene smile and confident poise, paired with William's steady warmth and quiet authority, dominated the lenses. To many, the couple had become the rare embodiment of balance, preserving royal dignity while carrying the breath of a new era. Buckingham Palace's silence on the king's precise condition only deepened public curiosity. The royal household called it respecting privacy, but for many, it was also a way to protect the king's image from moments of visible frailty. In another sense, that silence left space for speculation, for imagination, and for hope. Because as the king receded from view, William and Catherine moved forward not with grand declarations, but through steady, deliberate action, step by step building public trust. Editorials in The Times and The Guardian alike noted that this soft handover was a strategic masterstroke, preparing the public to see the next generation in place. For many, it was no longer a question of if William would be king, but when. The public may not yet know when Charles will formally step down from the throne, but they have already begun to speak of William and Catherine as leaders of the present, not merely of the future. From coffee shops in London to family gatherings in the countryside, conversations carry the same undertone: concern for the king's health, tempered with anticipation for a new era quietly taking shape. And it is in this delicate overlap between worry and hope that the image of the monarchy is being redefined, not through grand proclamations, but through silence, through action, and through allowing the natural expectations of the public to become the very engine driving the future. As the king gradually withdraws from public duties, the once relentless royal schedule now allows Charles to devote himself to pursuits he could previously only touch in fleeting moments his health, his family, and his lifelong passion for the environment. Doctors advise a regimen of light exercise, mindful eating, and above all, stress reduction. On crisp autumn mornings, instead of preparing for formal ceremonies, Charles often steps into his private gardens, tending carefully to each bed of flowers, chatting with his gardener about new plant varieties, or sitting quietly by the ornamental lake, watching ducks glide in perfect circles. But Charles has not vanished from the royal stage entirely. Behind the scenes, he keeps a close eye on William and Catherine's work, sometimes offering gentle encouragement, at other times providing strategic counsel. Private meetings, whether over the phone or in the king's study, remain confidential, as the three discuss the monarchy's long-term direction from charitable initiatives and environmental projects to the subtle handling of sensitive media issues. His passion for environmental conservation, once dismissed as eccentric, during his time as Prince of Wales has become a powerful bond between father and sons. William presses forward with his Earthshot Prize, while Catherine weaves sustainability into her educational and mental health programs. From his quieter vantage point, Charles sees his own reflection in their unwavering commitment to long-term values. Resisting the lure of short-term glamour, family by number two has moved to the center of his life. Cozy dinners at a high grove, moments spent playing with his grandchildren in the garden, or quiet afternoons reading beside Camilla, these now bring Charles a peace altogether different from the solemnity of the throne. And though a certain distance still lingers between Camilla and the younger royals, Charles strives to bridge it, reminding all that the true strength of the monarchy lies in unity. Commentators suggest that by stepping back, yet remaining present in a measured way, Charles has pioneered a form of soft succession unprecedented in modern royal history. He has neither vanished nor imposed himself. Instead, he has become a silent patron, part mentor, part symbol of continuity. Perhaps this pause, amid the storms of daily news, marks the most meaningful chapter of Charles's life, no longer racing to prove himself, but choosing instead to safeguard, nurture, and pass on his legacy. A king in the shade, yet whose shadow still stretches wide enough to shelter the royal family during a time of profound transition. William and Catherine are no longer heirs in name alone, they are, in every sense, the present-day leaders of the British monarchy. Whether at high-level diplomatic events or in visits to rural schoolhouses, their presence carries a clear message, a seamless blending of royal tradition with the modern spirit of the 21st century. William retains the composure and quiet gravitas of monarchs past, yet is unafraid to speak candidly about climate change, global responsibility, and the issues young people care about. Catherine, with her warm yet polished demeanor, turns charity engagements into opportunities for inspiration, bringing topics such as mental health and early education to the forefront of public awareness. The public doesn't just watch, they feel connected. From everyday Londoners to international audiences, people see in William and Catherine a monarchy close enough to listen, yet dignified enough to lead. Their growing support stems not merely from their titles, but from a belief that they can bring something fresh and vital to an institution centuries old, yet under pressure to adapt. Still, the question remains one not only for the monarchy, but for all of us following this story. Will William and Catherine truly deliver the renewal the crown needs? Or will they, too, be drawn into the machinery of tradition that has shaped every king and queen before them? As we wait for the answer, one thing is certain: the present moment is a hopeful new chapter. History rarely gives us the chance to witness a succession as smooth, yet as meaningful as this, when a king steps into the shade, and the next generation steps brightly into the light. If you'd like to uncover more of the unseen stories behind the palace gates, hit the like button to show your support, share to spread the word, and subscribe so you never miss an update. And when you're done, click on the related video we've suggested. It reveals untold details of William and Catherine's journey from Duke and Duchess of Cambridge to icons of a modern British monarchy.